Welcome back to his Creek Workshop. My name is Yuchel. This is part 5 of the Deckel SO Grinder Restoration series. I got all the parts painted, cleaned, blued. We're going to start reassembling the rest of the grinder. For the sliding parts, I'm going to use the Boschel T9. You saw me use that in the last video. It acts as a rust corrosion protectant, but also waterproof lubrication. It leaves a dry film. You basically let it dry off and then you wipe it. Now if you want a real thin coat, then you wipe it before it completely dries. Felt ring. I guess it keeps the dirt out. And I only managed to ding the paint a little bit. Remember this screw? I guess it's called traverse screw. I had broken right there. I thought about making a new one and I thought, you know what do I got to lose? So I tried welding it and it just came out perfect. So I didn't have to make a new one. Alright, so I got a vent. Here's that nut that this lead screw goes into, okay? And the way you have to install it, well, it's pressure fitted into this casing here. So see, that's round. So not only do you have to get that round nut oriented properly so the lead screw goes in straight, you also have to control how high that nut sits. If you press in too hard, it'll bind. If you don't press in enough, it binds. So you gotta adjust those two things, and there's just no way to adjust it other than take it out and redo it over and over and over to get the right orientation, this way, right angle, and the height. It's just a pain in the rear. That screw, lead screw, is working the way it's supposed to. Now this is a thumb knob that goes right there to secure, and it was, like you saw in the last video, originally secured with a pin. I am not going to use the pin on this again. That'll weaken that shaft, the screw even more. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drill and tap that thumb wheel knob for a set screw. So I'll have to file a flat spot on that screw right there for that to work. I'm gonna hold off until I can source the proper size set screw. So we'll set that aside right now. this pin that goes in the hole and gets pushed down with the knob, it was flared badly, so I put it on the lathe and turned down the flare end. You were supposed to tell me that I'm putting this on backwards. Shame on you. The ball race looks good, which is a good thing. The rear ball race looks good. The spindle quill, or whatever you want to call it, also has the ball race on both ends. So let's clean it and see how they look. Just looking around to make sure everything's okay. And actually it looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. We'll let that dry. It's time to start rebuilding the spindle. As you saw, I thoroughly cleaned with everything with mineral spirit, and I will also give a quick wipe with isopropyl alcohol. Now, as far as the spindle grease, I went back and forth as to what I what I should use. There are a lot of good information out there. I firmly believe that there are more than one grease that can be successfully used. But at the end, I decided to go with Kluber Isoflex Supertel. This is the grease recommended and sold by American Rotary Tools, ARTCO, as the grease to use on these Deckel. And not just them, but it's what is recommended. Now, this is pretty darn expensive. 50 grams, $50. $1 per gram. Now, given that I only need probably 3 grams worth of it, I wish I didn't have to buy this much, but, you know, they don't sell any smaller than this. So, I'm gonna have a bunch left over, I guess. So, anyway, try not to dwell on that too much. My wife convinced me to go with this. She says, hey, how many times are you going to be rebuilding this? Do it right. So I said, all right. So I can honestly say that my wife made me do it. With alcohol, we're going to wipe the bearing races here on this quill or whatever they call it. There, and on the other side as well. Should be clean, but not taking any chances. And this as well. This is the other race that goes on the end of the spindle. Some compressed air, blow out these bearing cages. I do want to put a little bit of oil on the external thread. I'm not too worried about overfilling with grease because it's an open design and any excess will fall inside of that spindle. Time to put on my handy dandy grippy grip gloves. I'm going to tighten the front. It's good. The back. It's good. And obviously I need to lock that in there, so. Alright, the spindle's done. We're ready to install the spindle. I was just touching this area by hand and noticed there's some burrs where the mounting pins register. I'm going to put a light coat of this Starrett tool and instrument oil. To kind of keep that opening on that main casting from rusting. I don't want this spindle sticking and not wanting to come out. So now there's this hole right there that lines up with the retainer screw there. Let's talk a little bit about the spindle preload. You saw those 2 pin nuts at the end of the spindle. That's what you use to set the preload. Now, if you tighten that too much, then the spindle will not spin properly. It will bind, and it would also cause excessive wear on the ball bearing races. Okay? But if it's too loose, then you will have, it will sound loose, rattly. And also, based on this 2-piece design of the cage and the inner race and outer race being separate, you'll have excessive play. You'll actually have quite a bit of play. You can grab the spindle and wiggle it, and it'll move a lot. So you kind of have to play with it, and just it's something that you just get a feel for. It may take you just one try. It may take you a couple different tries to get that right. But I was lucky enough to get this just right. It feels nice, smooth, no excessive noise from the bearings, and there's no play. So I'm really happy about that. So you don't want to over tighten it, or it's just going to destroy it. Let's assemble the wheel turning mechanism. That's where you need your safety squints on, but fortunately I got mine built in. I was born with them. So this knob has this part that turns, and it has a keyway, so that key has to fit in there. And somehow set screw, grub screw, small end, this neural knob goes on there. So this is a diamond dresser. You stick that in there, and when you turn it out, it holds it in place. So you can adjust where you want that. So the wheel guard has 2 pins held on by 2 screws. Oh, aha, almost forgot. You have to put the drive belt on there before you put the wheel guard on. So now, this is the old one that came off of it. It's kind of crusty, crunchy, and here's one strand that broke off. So I got another one, and it's a little bit smaller. Not much, but a little bit. I think, this I'm sure stretched over the years, and it's adjustable to a certain extent. So got this from Arco, American Rotary Tools in California, same place where I got the Spindle Grease. Oh, and alright, so we'll put this pulley on there like that. Okay, so the grinder portion is, well, this part is done. Next video, part 6, will be the last video of the restoration series of this grinder. We'll take a look at the motor assembly and do a good cleanup. I don't know how much of a restoration work it's going to require, but you know, my intent is to just clean up and repaint to make sure the paint matches, but who knows, once we take it apart, there may be surprises. But anyway, I really appreciate it. Hit that thumbs up button, comment, and subscribe. I really appreciate it. And see you next time.